What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Gooner. And in case you weren't glued to your set or internet for the Europa League live draw, the news is Arsenal will be playing Sporting Lisbon, the first match to be played in Lisbon on the 9th of March, with the return leg a week later at the Emirates on the 16th of March. Now, the first thing to note is that this is on paper a really straightforward tie. And I think if both teams play their first teams, this should be a fairly comfortable win for Arsenal. Now, Sporting Lisbon qualified for the last 16 by beating mighty Midtjylland from Denmark. Yeah, I've never heard of them, sorry. If you're a Midtjylland fan, or if I'm saying that completely wrong, I have literally no idea. But what's interesting is that Danish team managed to get a 1-1 draw away. And although Sporting thrashed them 4-0 in the return fixture, that does point to the inconsistencies that Sporting have been having all season. In fact, they are in the Europa League because they finished third in the group in the Champions League that contained Tottenham, Marseille and Frankfurt. Now, they did manage to get a draw away to Spurs and beat Spurs, but they lost both their home games to Marseille and Frankfurt. So, an eminently beatable team. If Arsenal are playing their first team, you would imagine this would be a fairly comfortable win. Now, the key thing here, though, is that this is adding to our fixtures. We play the first game away just 5 days after we play Bournemouth at home, and only 3 days before we play Fulham away. Now, those two games are arguably pivotal in our title bid. So, do we put out a full-strength team and expect them to be fully fit for a game with all the travel that's involved? I'm not sure about this one. How important is the Europa League? There are some really big teams still left in it, and we dodged a couple of those so far already. Mourinho's Roma. Mourinho is aiming to become the first man to win all 3 of the European competitions. Juventus are in it, and with their 30 points behind Napoli at the moment, this might be the best chance they have of making Champions League next season. Sevilla, who are just one of the powerhouses of this competition. I think we smashed them 6-0 pre-season. Don't get me wrong, I would have loved to have seen us drawn them, but you know, they're not to be taken lightly when it comes to this competition. So with all of these big teams in it, and I've yet to mention Manchester United, I do want to say that I think that under Ten Hag, Manchester United, particularly the performances against Barcelona, really do look like they've turned a massive corner, and I don't think it's even unfair to consider them favourites for this competition. Certainly nobody's going to want to play them at Old Trafford, apart from possibly Mourinho, and that is the tie that I want to see. So will Arsenal take this competition all that seriously? Now, I don't have any particular insight into Arteta's thinking around this subject. If it was me in his position, I'd be looking at it this way. In Arsene Wenger's entire reign, despite getting us to 2 finals, he didn't manage to win any European silverware. Arsenal's last European silverware came in 1994. This is a good chance. We're in the last 16. A final against even, the favourites in this, Manchester United or Roma, could be eminently winnable. And that kind of silverware added to the FA Cup that he's already won might salvage some pride out of the season, even if we were to finish lower down the league than it currently looks like we will do. On the other hand, are we going to have a better chance to win the Premier League? The first half of the season was an almost unbeatable performance and certainly doesn't seem like something that's going to be repeated often. If you do better than Arsenal have ever done in their long and illustrious history, then certainly that's the best springboard you're going to have to win the Premier League. The key thing here is if you're playing your best players against Sporting, is it realistic to expect to be able to play them against Fulham? And Fulham are no mugs. Bournemouth are not going to be a necessarily easy match. And those 2 teams around it are going to really put pressure on what I've already said is quite a thin squad. If I looked at it from Arteta's point of view, the way he's played cup games before, obviously we had a pretty bad performance against Brighton in the League Cup. And the FA Cup, good performance against Oxford, but when it came to the Manchester City game, we dropped 6 players. We brought in second string. Is that what he's planning to do with the Europa League? Is that risky? If we end up going away to Sporting Lisbon, dropping 6 players or 7 players, or fielding a second string all the way through, and we get thoroughly beaten, is there any point then in fielding a full team against them in the return leg? Or does that mean you have to? Can you literally just throw the Europa League out and not chase it at all when you might end up with no silverware this season because Man City are still in the hunt for the Premier League title? Personally, I think we're going to do it this year. I believe that we're going to win the title. But it does seem like a gamble, and this is why the managers get paid the big bucks. So, what would you do? Do you throw all chance of winning Europa League out? Do we field a weakened side and still beat a fairly average Sporting? Do we focus on the Europa League and just hope that second string teams can beat Fulham away and Bournemouth at home? I'd love to hear what you would do in this situation. I'm undecided. I'm going to stick my neck out here and say that we are going to make changes for the away game to Sporting. I don't think that they're going to turn us over even if we played a second string team. We're going to put our first team out against Bournemouth. We're going to put our first team out against Fulham. And if we have to play the first team full strength to salvage something out of the Europa League, we've still got a chance to do that. I'd love to hear what you would do in this situation. Drop your comments or get in touch on a Facebook group, which is at nearly 400 followers at the moment. So thank you everybody who's making this possible. I'm really enjoying this channel, and I'm going to be posting a video a little bit later with a preview to tomorrow's match against Leicester, which has taken on new importance given Manchester City's slip and our opportunity this would present to extend our lead over them. Look forward to seeing you then. Lots of love.